Well, welcome to A-Eye Scoted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
11 out of 10. How are you?
I'm good. We agreed a deal for Hugo Ekitike, and while he wasn't my preferred number 9 or my second choice, he is very much growing on me, Karl. The more I look at him through a slightly different lens. What do you make of the deal, given the fee? So 69 million up front, another 10 in potential add-ons. Now, a couple things to bear in mind here. Number one, his release clause was 86 million. So the initial fee is well below that, and the add-ons don't even come to it. Number two, I wouldn't imagine his wages will be colossal. So I think the overall package for the deal is probably lower than what United have just committed for Bryan Mbeumo, which is interesting considering, they seem to be chuckling at the fact that we've bought this young striker. And number three, Newcastle's supposed driving up the price didn't drive the price up at all.
So if I can attack those in reverse chronological order, I very much doubt whether Newcastle doing anything has any bearing on anything at all at the moment, to be perfectly honest, unless they are in battles with, Nottingham Forests or Aston Villas or that sort of thing. They shouldn't, even though they are in the Champions League, they shouldn't really impact on players wanting to join them over other established Champions League sides at the minute. No, this isn't like a disrespect or a dismissal thing. I think Newcastle have done a really good job in terms of the growth that they've had year on year since the takeover. Set aside for whatever you think about the actual takeover at the minute, in terms of the actual squad, how they've progressed, won a cup last year, got into Europe and so on and so forth. I think that they've grown at a good rate. I really do. They are not, however, at a level where they can compete with a Chelsea, who are in it regularly, or an Arsenal even. If there's a choice between going to one or the other for most players, I would say, outside of the UK, probably they're going to pick the more established club.
So, yes, 100%.
I think that's fine and normal. And if Ekitike just says to his club or anyone else to their club, I'm not going to Newcastle, I'm going to go to this other club, well, that's not going to result in a bidding war. If it's a Nottingham Forest and a Newcastle, or a Villa and a Newcastle, or something like that, maybe a different matter.
Yeah, I think Spurs, of the traditional Big Six, Spurs are probably the only club they could really compete with.
Agreed.
But ourselves, United, because it's United, Arsenal, Chelsea, City. Like, as you said, Chelsea are frequently in the Champions League. We're in the Champions League every year. Arsenal are in it now again every year, and City are in it every year. And the difference with that and Newcastle is not only are you pretty much guaranteed to be in it every year, but you also have a chance to win the competition. And ultimately, players want to win the Champions League. They don't just want to play in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So until you're in a position to do that, you are merely a stepping stone club. And look, we found that out multiple times.
Absolutely. Yep, there was a big period there where everybody would be linked with us, even potentially hold talks with us, and then go to, even at the time, Tottenham and level of side. So especially around that whole Willian era of transfers, let's say.
Not a dark summer.
Yes. Now, let's move on to the middle points that you raised there about Manchester United chuckling. I don't want to hear about them chuckling.
No.
If they haven't learned at this point that they tend to make more mistakes in the transfer market than we do, I'm perfectly happy for them to continue chuckling. And I will do exactly the same when we get to November and they're in the bottom half of the table. Okay? That's really all I've got to say on the matter. What do I make of the fee? It's a big fee overall, no two ways about it. If we talk about the full 79, he will have done bits. I haven't actually seen anything which says what that 10 million extra is for. Obviously, we can assume some will be appearances, some will be probably league position, Champions League, trophies, whatever it is. But there's no, as far as I've seen, there's no breakdown of how much is each thing. So I hope that is based on him doing well, not just being part of a team which does well. That's my first thing. 69 million, I must say, is still a little bit higher than I would have liked.
Yeah, same.
Maybe 9 million more. If that's fair.
for me, I think a fair price would have been like 55 going to 70, but 60 going to 70 would have been palatable.
Yeah.
Because I maintain it's a year early for him. That doesn't mean he can't come in and do really well. But if you look at, say, Isak when he arrived in the Premier League, that first season he did well, but it felt like it was a little bit early for him. But Newcastle had gone and gotten him, and when he exploded then in year 2, and then subsequently obviously in year 3, they already had him in. They weren't having to concern themselves. So we can bring him in. We don't need him to be the finished product this season. We don't need him to be the finished product maybe even next season, because we still have Mo Salah. We have Florian Wirtz. We have other attacking players that are at the club or may come to the club that can carry a lot of that burden. It's not like a thing where if he was joining United or he was joining Newcastle to replace Isak, they would need him to hit straight away. We're in a very comfortable position here where we still have the best attacker in the league, coming off a historically great season. So what we're looking for is someone who is more of a longer-term piece with Hugo.
One additional thing I would say there is, like, obviously his chance creation rate is like really good, like compared to most other forwards around Europe, is really, really good. So it's how you're going to continue to get that out of him, but also add the component of he takes more shots than other number 9s we've had. So it's going to be interesting to see how that integrates. I do agree with you, though, that we don't necessarily need him to hit the ground running in terms of, top tier performances on a consistent basis, but, and we'll get onto this part in a bit, how much he starts and therefore how much emphasis there is on him impacting at least a bit is going to depend on who is moved on this summer, obviously, because someone's got to play number 9, and even if Ekitike is not, playing exceptionally well straight from the beginning or takes a bit of time to adjust or whatever, and I think here we can potentially look at other forwards who have left Eintracht Frankfurt over the last sort of 2-3 years. There's a bit of a mixed bag probably from when you are at a club which has, really done their homework in terms of putting a team around you and letting you thrive, because there's been plenty of them over the last little while, but then going elsewhere and doing well, very well, or not as well as expected.
Yeah, I mean, Eintracht voodoo is something that does scare me a little bit, I have to say. We've seen Jovic, we've seen Haller, we've seen Kolomuani, and we've seen players from other positions as well explode there, excel there, and then go elsewhere and not work out. But if we just take those 3 big money strikers, Jovic went to Real Madrid, right? Real Madrid had Karim Benzema, who was the best striker in the world at that point. So he was going there and he was going to be the backup. And obviously, he just wasn't suited to that type of role. That maybe his attitude wasn't great. I know there'd been questions about him when he was at Benfica. It's one of the reasons they got rid of him, is that they didn't like the way he reacted to not being in the team. And obviously, Real binned him off. I think 3 years into a 6-year contract, they gave him a free transfer when he'd already been on loan in that time. But again, he didn't go to a good situation. He went to a situation where the best striker in the world was ahead of him. Haller went to West Ham. Now, I think we've both seen enough occasions where players have gone to West Ham, good players, and it just hasn't worked out because it hasn't been the most stable environment, because there's managerial changes, because there's never really a set way of playing. So you could excuse that as well. And I would say a similar situation with Kolomuani, who went to PSG. In the same summer, they also signed Gonçalo Ramos, and they had Kylian Mbappe, who wanted to play as a number 9. Let's not forget, Hugo also had his issues at PSG. He went there, they had Mbappe, he wanted to play through the middle, they had Messi, they had Neymar, so his path was blocked. I give Hugo credit for his time at PSG, though, because he could very easily have given up really quick. They tried to push him out the door, so they loaned him in, Then they bought him after a fairly, a moderately okay season. And they immediately tried to flip him for a profit. I think West Ham had an offer accepted for him. And he didn't want to go. He wanted to stay and he wanted to fight for his position. And he wanted to prove himself there. And I think that shows a lot of maturity for a guy who at the time I think was like 2021. Doesn't get the opportunity. They basically stonewall him. You're not playing. Leave. We don't want you. Whatever the situation is. So he takes the opportunity and goes to Eintracht. And obviously he's done really, really well there. We're a very different club to the PSG that Kolo Muani walked into, to West Ham and to Real Madrid, in that we don't miss very often. And this is the thing that rival fans can't seem to wrap their heads around. We don't miss very often. Since Klopp arrived, you could make an argument that the only two signings we've quote-unquote missed on were Darwin and Naby.
Right, the Reds, it's Jack here, and that was a clip from one of Anfield Index's audio podcasts. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure you do like, share and subscribe to keep up to date on all things LFC. We record around 100 audio podcasts every month, with our shows featuring match-going fans, top journalists, professional analysts and even Liverpool legends along the way, with the Great Dane himself, Jan Molby, joining us every single week. If you want to listen to all our podcasts for free, head over to anfieldindex.com/podcasts. Our audio shows are available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Anfield Index. Or if you prefer to listen to all our podcasts in full and without any ads, why not head over to A-Eye Pro today to check it out now at AnfieldIndexPro.com. If you want to get involved in the great growing community of Liverpool fans, check out the Anfield Index Discord. The link is in the description. Do get involved with that, from Reds around every corner of the globe. For now, Reds, hope you enjoyed this video.